If you want to hear and see more content like this, make sure you subscribe and follow. You're listening to the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast, and I'm Lou Temlett. I know you're having a good day because either you've been on the mats, considering getting on the mats, or maybe you're rolling forever. I'm so happy you're here listening or watching this episode. Please don't tap out before the end. When you want to be part of a worldwide social club, start training jiu-jitsu. I'd like to welcome Betty Broadhurst to my podcast. Hi, Betty. How are you?
Hello, Lou. How are you?
Very well. I'm so excited. This is episode 100. When I started nearly 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, I never thought I would get here, nor would I imagine talking to you over the airwaves and connecting with you quite as much as we have over the years. Tell us what your current rank is and where you're based, if people don't already know the name Betty Broadhurst.
Okay. Well, I currently live in North Carolina, which is on the East Coast. And my home gym is Diego Bispo Academy out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. And he is my professor who promoted me to black belt. And I am currently a first degree black belt. I've earned my first degree a year ago. So I currently train at a local gym, which is a Carlson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu called Black Sheep Jiu-Jitsu, which is in the North Carolina area. It's about 30 miles from my home. And then I'm about an hour and a half from Virginia Beach, where my main gym is, which is an Aries affiliate. But Professor Diego Bispo, who is the best professor ever, promoted me to black belt at Masters Worlds on the podium, which was a great experience. Wow. And I get to go to Virginia Beach and train occasionally with them at open mats and things. But I relocated to North Carolina. I'm a caregiver to my elderly parents that are aged 94 and 88.
Wow.
So we do things in life, as they come. But I still am so blessed that I'm close enough to gyms. And great friends I have at the Carlson Gracie Gym in Nash County, North Carolina. And I appreciate their open and their arms and welcoming me and being open about training with everyone, which is a very important focus I've always had, is to train with everyone, go to open mats, etc. So that is my current status.
Amazing. And your Master 7, where are you ranked in the world at the moment, Betty?
Let's see. At this past Worlds, I'm still number 3. I did not compete. There was no one in my age or weight class. And so I did not compete. I withdrew. But currently, for my previous points, I'm still number 3 in the world for
Fantastic. I absolutely love seeing that you're ranked number 3 in the world for Master 7. When I first kind of encountered your socials at BJJ Betty on Instagram, I saw a video clip of you talking about when you started training jiu-jitsu at the age of 54. And there was something that resonated for me in my kind of personal story. And just being able to see what an inspiration you were starting at the age of 54. Now, some of us started in our 40s and 50s, maybe even our 60s. And it's just really important to be able to see role models like yourself out there as black belts, even if we're, white or blue belts still.
And young, you're young.
48. I do feel young, actually. I feel like I'm probably 28. I will have a go with the young white belts at least.
Exactly. Look, they have to work for it, is the way I used to think. I've had more losses in matches than wins because as I came up, there were no older women there, that competed. And so a lot of the local tournaments and all, there was never anyone. So I always took a loss, but I felt like I was winning at life. And I also felt like I was good enough that they had to work for it. It wasn't just like, they may have submitted me in 2 or 3 minutes, but
Yep.
it wasn't just like a 5-second submission or something, because I
Yep.
tried very hard and to the best of my ability at my age, at 54, 55, 56,
Yeah.
whenever I started competing around 55 to 56.
Fantastic. Now, why did you start training at the age of 54? What was it that shifted in your life for you to look at training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu?
Um, at age 54, I lived in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I am by profession a clinical hospital pharmacist, and I worked at a major medical center there. And I was divorced, single, kids off to college. I have a son and daughter. They were both had left home, so I lived alone. And traditionally, I did a couple of sports like golf, tennis, was in a book club, wine club. So I
Yeah.
had a lot of lady friends and was enjoying life. But one of my friends set me up on a blind date, which, I really at that point in my life thought, okay, maybe that's what I'm missing. We'll
Yeah.
go. I go on this blind date. We meet at a restaurant. We drive there separately and meet at a restaurant, and it was okay. We, shared a few topics. It didn't work out, and I did. He called. I didn't, and I said, nah, thank you, but no, thank you. I didn't want to see
Yep.
him again. Unfortunately, he was over persistent and became a stalker.
Okay.
A stalker to the point that parking across the street from my home, parking in the parking lot where I worked, keeping a distance, but you're being watched, and I recognize the car, phone
Yeah.
calls asking me to meet him. I did go to the police. Got a restraining order, which they did tell me, that's just a piece of paper. Maybe
Yeah.
you should get a gun, but by working at a hospital, you're not allowed to have guns on campus, in your car, anything like that. And I really
Yep.
wasn't in favor of getting a gun. So I felt very helpless. I mean, because there's someone out there, you don't know what their ultimate intentions are. They're not letting
Yep.
up, and it became more persistent. So ran into a poster about a women's self-defense that was going to be in the community on a Saturday.
Yep.
Decided, okay, that's maybe I'm going to do everything I can to the best of my ability. Went to it, 3 hours, a lot of women there, a lot of younger women, a few older women, wore the sweatshirt. We did the drop and roll, the bear
Yep.
hug escape, just maybe 4 or 5 moves. It was much more, I think it made more sense than some of the videos that I had seen, like punch their eyeballs or kick them in the
Yep.
between the legs, because some of those things are not realistic. Like just
Yeah.
grab their wrist and twist it. Some of those things I had seen videos of self-defense, and I thought,
Yep.
now in the middle of, would you really be able to think like that? In a
Yeah.
situation. But these seem to be moves that I was able to do, women that were older were able to do,
Yeah.
like having to reach down and grab a leg and pull it between your own legs, things that made common sense. And I thought, well,
Yeah.
this is pretty, I kind of am appreciating this. So I knew that after 3 hours that was not going to be my fix, as far as, because I had no one to go back and train with. I
Yeah.
didn't video it, so there was no way to go
Oh,
back
wow.
and practice the moves. It was just from memory, or I did take some notes. So I spoke to the 2 instructors, found out
Yeah.
that they were both Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belts, and that they had a gym, and that I could come by, and maybe if I was more interested, I said, well, I'm not interested in a group, because with my age,
Yeah.
I don't want to, go in with younger people, but I am interested in learning more of these techniques. So they suggested private lessons. So
Okay.
went to their gym, signed up, private lesson every Saturday,
Yeah.
and after the first lesson, they began to bring in an uke every Saturday. So that uke would be my partner while they would direct and, work with me, which, as we all
Yep.
know, instructors that teach privates always like for you to bring an uke. So every Saturday, I would have a private lesson like at 9 a.m. and then they taught a class at 10.
Yeah.
So that one of the class people would come an hour early to be my uke, and it would be a different person every time. They would get a volunteer that was going to class. So after about 8 weeks, they said, "Well, Betty, why don't you just stay over and go to class?" And I said, "Oh no, I'm not. I can't take classes." They said, "Well, over half the people that are in there now on the Saturday morning class."
Oh,
And I hadn't realized it, but by rotating Ukis every Saturday, he had slowly introduced me to the members of the class, and I was on a first name basis because I'd
yeah.
see them coming in to go to class and say hi, and they would see me and see that I was pretty persistent coming back.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'll sit in. But I ended up doing a few moves and rolls, and after that, I said, well, there's no reason not to. I kept up the private lessons for about 4 to 6 more weeks because I still wanted that extra to help me to level up. But
Yeah.
when I went into the class, it was mainly men. And you have to think this was like, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was mainly men, and there was one girl from local university. And but because they had become my acquaintance through being uke, it was much more comfortable. And
Yeah.
I really recommend to any owners, instructors, that if you do have someone that's nervous, which we all, just like we have anxiety about competing or anxiety
Yeah.
about going into group, it's like being the new kid in class. If you
Yeah.
have children, you know what it's like if you have to relocate and bring in a child to a new classroom. Everybody's looking at you, everybody's looking at what you're wearing. It kind of took all that away because they'd
Yeah.
all met me before. So
So
from then on, I continued going to the classes, and then I did Saturday, and then the next thing you know, I picked up and started going to the night classes, and yeah, there I went. So I was hooked.
amazing. Amazing. So they really did their work in guiding you into their school, and kind of making you feel comfortable. How important is it that, like you say, the school owners make or kind of encourage new students to feel comfortable and train with lots of different people? Because it sounds like for you, it was the thing that
I
kept you
think that
going.
it is so important that people are you feel welcome because you're seeking out something that's out of your comfort zone. Number
Yep.
one, and that would be for anyone, male, 25 years old, new to jiu-jitsu, maybe a wrestler 20 out of high school coming to a
Yep.
jiu-jitsu class. It's going to be your unknown, and number two, it's going to be in a room full of people you probably don't know, and a
Yep.
sport you don't know. And take that and add being female, being a divorced female, 54 years old,
Yep.
and not being able and not ever doing the sport and learning about it, and and then going into a room where the sport is predominantly male dominated. I mean,
Yep.
most of your partners are male, and getting that comfort level um, of feeling welcome, because
Yep.
I cannot. It's important to every new student, not just an older woman that's the only woman in the class. I think it's
Yeah.
important. So I think all instructors and academies maybe should look at that format, as a buddy system. Some people have buddy systems where you're
Yeah.
assigned to a buddy
Yeah.
when you're a new student. But yeah, I think it's very important as far as retention, because a lot of
Yeah.
people, you talk about the blue belt flight and things like that. I think it's important for
Yep.
retention, and a lot of people sign up for these membership specials and then they leave. So
Yeah.
I think it's become a very competitive business now, as we all
Yeah.
know, with so many jiu-jitsu academies, as the sport has grown, that you do
Absolutely.
everything to make that person feel comfortable,
Yep.
welcome, and that they're learning and gaining from the experience. That
Yeah.
they don't walk out feeling like they didn't learn anything during that hour, and that their
Yeah.
questions are answered.
I think that's really important. And from my experience, getting to know people in the gym slowly, it does take time. But you were almost fast tracked, which I really love. But go and say hello to other people in your gym and just get to know them. whether it's their first name or whatever, because it then starts to build the community. Now, at the beginning of this episode, I was introducing the fact that this is a worldwide community.
It is.
How has that served you, and where has jiu-jitsu taken you around the world, Betty?
Oh my goodness. It's like you do something and you don't realize you're just doing it because you like jiu-jitsu. And people used to say things to me, and I'd say, I'm just an old lady that wants to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When
Yep.
people would come up to me, and I remember when I first started competing, I did a few at white belt and then at blue belt, local things like some of the local competitions in the North Carolina, South Carolina area on the East Coast. And then we would have travel weekends where the competition team would go, and I'd go to support my teammates. But I thought, well, while I'm there, I might as well compete. But there was never an old woman competing. I mean, never. And there was always young people, because at these local competitions, once the belts get higher, well, there was just no one that age anyway doing it. So many of my competitions as a white belt and as a blue belt was always with someone probably 28 years old, maybe at the oldest, or down. Usually it was 18 to 22 or 16. It's just when kids just started doing it as teenagers. It wasn't when they had little kids classes. Our gym didn't have little kids classes. That's something that's kind of grown in the last 10 years, not the last 14 years. So I took so many losses, but the thing I was the proudest of was that I would always smile and be so happy and say, I'm really winning, because I stepped on the mat and I gave 100% of what I had learned and what my professors had taught me. And even though my age cannot compensate for, I can't compensate for the fact of my opponent's age, agility, speed, strength, the things that naturally younger athletes have older. But I didn't give it to them either. I used everything I had learned so that it wasn't like a 5-second submission. I mean, they had to earn passing my guard, or they had to earn escaping my side control. And so, the things that it was, I was always there. And then the joy of cheering for my teammates. But when I would go to these competitions, people would come up and say to me, especially at blue belt, and when I started doing more competitions, like when we go to Maryland or up and down the East Coast, people would say to me, oh, are you here? Who's your child? And I would say, I'd say, I don't have a child here. I'm competing. And their mouths will just fly open,
I love it.
So a lot of mothers of the teenagers that were competing, male or female, would see me out there. And then I noticed there were crowds whispering or talking about it, and they'd come up to me afterwards and go, why, they think that's just amazing that you're doing that. And then when I tell them, they'd ask me my age, and I would tell them 54, 55, 56. Their mouths even got bigger. And I said, you really should do this. You would not believe what great shape. Oh, I could never do that. I said, you can't say that to a 54-year. Oh, I started at 54, so you have no reason. I said, don't say that I should have started younger, so that was my comeback to everybody. And the gym I was training at began a kids program, and as a lot of the mothers came in, they would see me training. By now I was a blue belt, approaching purple, and started talking about how their kids you'd moved the furniture back, and they wished they had known. I said, well, you need to join. You need to come join with me.
They do.
And they started. And believe it or not, a lot of the women did begin coming and joining, and that were mothers or girlfriends, let's say, of guys that were training, not just women, or wives that would go to the competitions and see me out there. And I think their husband says, look, if Betty can do it, you can do it, you know.
Yeah.
And they, of course, started. I'd partner with them, you know, and before you knew it, they were excelling and doing well. And it was so wonderful to see as I look back and watch people that I helped start go and compete that were 30, 20 years younger than me, or you know, that were in their late 20s or 30s when they started, and now I see them winning on the podium at Masters. You know, and
Amazing.
it's so joyful for me, you know, because I have a lot of people that I talked into starting as a white belt that are now black belts. So
Wow.
that's very, very rewarding. But because of just things that become being at the right place at the right time, I was so blessed. But you ask about is the world, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the examples was I was at an actual I don't know if it was Naga or whatever in Maryland, U.S., which is north of Virginia, right north adjoining D.C., Washington D.C., at a tournament. And I remember sitting in the stands at my gi, waiting, and this lady was sitting like one step behind me in the stands, and she said, are you competing or do you have kids? And I said, no, I'm competing. And she says, oh, I have to. And she didn't seem to be too taken back, you know, by the fact that I was competing.
Yeah.
It was like, and I said, she goes, I have two sons competing. She said, that real tall, skinny guy over there, and then the little short, plump guy over here in the gi. And then
Yeah.
there was gi, and you know, these tournaments were always gi and no gi. So they would always do gi first and then no gi was second. She said they
Yeah.
really like no gi, but we do gi while we're here. So we began chatting and all. Her son was a purple belt, maybe. Yeah, purple belt. And I was a blue belt at the time. And I remember meeting him. He had this real weird haircut and all. And they were from New Jersey. And it ends up that it was Gordon Ryan. And his
Wow.
mother was the lady I was talking to. So we became friends on Facebook, shared, and then when he became a brown belt and he became more, we were still friends on Facebook. I had Gordon come down and do a seminar at my gym. And this was before anybody knew who he was, you
Yeah.
know. And so it's really amazing that, and I still have a very good friendship with him and his brother and his mother. In fact, so when you talk about international, one of my
Yep.
first big international trips is I flew to Espoo, Finland. I'd never been to Europe. It was my first trip for ADCC 2017 because she
Wow.
didn't know any women that liked jiu-jitsu, and I said, well, you know, I love it, I'll go with you, because I was becoming a fan of no gi. I'd started in the gi, but then,
Yep.
you know, as I became a blue belt and purple belt, I started doing no gi. So I went to Finland with her, and from there I met lots of international athletes. I mean, and then I went to, let's see, later on, let's see, when I did my first World Masters, I started
Yep.
meeting people. And in my first World Masters, I was a blue belt. And I can tell you from that, I was the oldest person there at World Masters, other than there were a couple of men maybe my age. I think I was 58 or
Yep.
57, and I was
Wow.
blue. And I went down to Master 4 or 5 and cut 15 pounds to get a match, because the next
Wow.
oldest person, closest person to me, was that. There was no one 58. And this is when Masters was held at in a high school gymnasium,
Goodness me.
basketball gymnasium. It was not at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Was no Jiu-Jitsu con. It was considered the old folks tournament. And it's the only place that women and men could compete against people of their own age. But even at my age, there was nobody my age.
Yeah.
So there was nobody master enough, you know, old
Yep.
enough to be with me. I should have been a master 6, but I think I cut to masters 4.
Wow.
And we were blue belts. And after the match, I mean, I was nervous and I didn't know anyone. None of my coaches went. No one went. And it happened to be another a purple belt from North Carolina happened to be competing, and he told me he would be there, and so he coached me from the side. I lost the match, but I was so happy. I had cut so much weight, and I had hurt. I mean, but I wanted it so badly to
Yeah.
be there, and it was my only match. I mean, so we stood on the podium together and hugged each other because
Oh,
she didn't have a match either, and I cut and went down so that I could, because she can't come up. Younger people can't go up to
yeah.
meet you. Only
Yeah.
you can go down.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the match, and she won by Kimura, and I will never forget the referee said, "Hold on 1 minute," after he raised her hand, and I had tears just streaming because I had done it. This was my first big tournament. IBJJF. I'd never done anything IBJJF because
Yeah.
you couldn't do anything at my age at IBJJF. It wasn't allowed.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were no women's divisions for anyone, in except at Worlds had Master One, and that was it. There was nothing else
Goodness.
um, for the gi, and nothing no gi. So the
Wow.
actual referee took the phone, gave it to the timekeeper, and said, "Take my picture with these two ladies." And he took a picture of us. And later on, a friend of mine, which was a Brazilian that I had trained with, said, "Hey, Professor Ricardo," and I can't think of his name right now, who was a Gracie Baja professor, was the referee, posted on his Instagram, and he sent it to me, and it was in Portuguese. And
Yeah.
it went on talking about these two ladies came here older than anyone else in the building as females and displayed. I can only hope that my wife, who is in her who is 30, will follow their lead and do
Yeah.
this. And this kind of picture went kind of wild in Brazil. And then it got translated, and I posted it actually on my Instagram. And I thought, wow, how cool that, he thought that that was something special. Well, I thought it
Yeah.
was really special.
Yeah.
But, I was like, oh, wow, an IBJJF referee. That was a big deal, posting
Yeah.
my picture. So,
Oh, amazing.
yeah. So, from
So,
there, it
uh,
was, went back and trained, and I went to every Worlds after, except I think during COVID.
yeah.
I did not go.
Yeah.
But I always competed, I always had to go against, in fact, as a purple belt, I had to go down a weight class, and I only could go with the only opponent I had was twice my weight. She weighed
Wow.
275 pounds. But I did, and we were the only two. There were four women in that particular Master 5 or 6. It was Master 5. I
Yeah.
dropped down to Master 5. And the other two women were feather and light, and so they went against one of them. They went against each other, and I went up to ultra heavy so that I could have a match because I couldn't cut to feather.
Yeah.
And then we did absolute, and the other two ladies didn't do it, and I lost both matches. But I absolutely wasn't afraid. But I'm not afraid to take on a match like that because I said the
Yeah.
worst you can do is tap.
Yeah.
And the judges, the referees, and everything, I think, have always been very careful, almost like they are with children. They will
Yeah.
almost tap for you, I think, as an older person, and I appreciate that. So I've had nothing but good things with IBJJF being an older person. Now, I'm not in
Yeah.
the competition circuit like the adult divisions, of course,
Yeah.
but I've had nothing but good things and kindness and so much courtesy shown to me in the
Yeah.
things I did.
You are
So
such an inspiration, Bessie. I just in awe of you going through all of those things, just with a kind of mindset of resilience, and you're going to do it anyway. You want a match. It's my dream to be as a blue belt when I'm 50, 2027, to go to World Masters. Now, I know it's beyond a school hall these days, and it's a much bigger event. What should anyone going to World Masters expect these days?
well, I think that the mindset that most people have now is finding a match. And I've noticed over the years, a lot of the women's chat groups or chat rooms that are on either Facebook or other media things. Anyone know a Masters 4 that weighs 125 pounds, or anyone know
Yeah.
a Master 3 featherweight? And I thought, I was just like, is there anyone female, or who is the oldest?
Yes.
And I'll come to you. It,
Yeah.
and I think, but that's the growth of the sport. So I don't think a lot of the women now are willing to go in unknown territory. Or
Yeah.
if and I'm trying to say that, but I think they're a little more selective about their matches, which kind of
Yeah.
disappoints me because I
Yeah.
was like so grateful for any kind of match. And
Yeah.
I think that now you see a lot of women that won't sign up. But I used to tell everybody, sign up, put your name out there, put your weight, whatever. Don't say no one signed up. Go ahead and sign up. If no one signs up, they're going to refund your money.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't get anybody in your bracket. But it's almost like if you're not the lead dog, the view never changes. So you have to be the lead dog and stick yourself out there. And, okay, I'm going to sign up. Okay, there's no Master 6s. All right, let me see who's in Master 5. Oh,
Yeah.
well, they're all little skinny girls, so I better go down to Master 4. And that is what it used to be like. I think now there's so many more women. The sport is so much more popular that there's especially at blue and purple, you can expect to find matches just in any bracket in any way.
Yeah.
Anxiety, I think, is one thing. If you have anxiety or competition, as far as like nerves, start working on routines to get rid of those. I initially, when I was competing, even at local tournaments, I felt like everybody was looking at me. You have that
Yep.
nervousness about what if I lose, what if I get in the bottom and I can't move, and people are going to laugh at me. They're not looking at you. They're not
No.
looking at you. There's 28, 30, I don't even know how many mats they have going nowadays. I know that it's like it's like 16 mats, and then you go to a new space and there's 16 more. There are matches going constantly, and it's
Yeah.
only 5 minutes of your life in
Yes.
Masters. And then you're off and another person is on there. So
Yeah.
first thing I'd say is learn how, if you're anxious, start working. And the best thing to do that is to compete local.
Yeah.
Compete. Because I competed a lot locally. And even though I took a lot of losses, there was always people in the stands watching kids. There were people watching. And because I was older, I had a lot of people looking, just because,
Yep.
there's an old woman out there. So I think getting used to competition, and you hear a lot of world champions say that,
Yeah.
it shakes the nerves. You get to the point that it's just like, and no open mat and no camp is the same as competing because you're going
No.
against somebody that you don't know. And even if it's a small tournament, it's a local tournament, and I suggest a lot of academies have now started having in-house tournaments where a couple of academies will face each other just
Yep.
so they will get some experience and get someone that knows the rules really well. And that's the other thing, know the rules. So that's one of the biggest things that I've preached since I used to read the rules, watch the videos,
Yep.
try to understand everything because I was so afraid I was going to do something wrong. But if you know the rules, you're 100% better than someone that just goes. I mean, I have known people that train all year and then they go to Masters Worlds and that's it. That's their only competition. They get caught up the vastness of it, the cameras at every booth. At every station, the black and white suits. The formality of the referees can be very intimidating. So I think that's another thing is to be aware of the rules, know when they do this, what that means, know when they do this, that means tie your belt and things like that, so that you're not standing there. And so there are little simple things you can do to make yourself more comfortable before you get there. So,
Fantastic. I love that advice, and I'm going to keep kind of re-listening. But today, if you're listening to this episode on Saturday, the 25th of October, there is an open mat and a Grand Prix happening at Rising Tide Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Western Supermare in the southwest of the UK. I arranged an open mat over a year ago, and for me, it's just about getting more mat time with people that follow the show and just to bring some of the community together, which is, really important. This episode is sponsored by the Jiu Jitsu Lou podcast. I want to thank you all so much for listening and watching the show and supporting my journey in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Never did I think that one day I would get to 100 episodes, but here we are. I am so grateful to all my guests over the last 2 years, and I thank you for listening to those early solo episodes of mine. You really are the true heroes. When you're stuck deep in the journey, you may not consider raising your head to appreciate what's been achieved, but today I'm doing this. So you may find me sat at the side of the mats with a tear of joyful emotion in my eye and taking a deep breath for what's next. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you all again, and do go and follow me on every podcast platform, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram for what's coming next. This is a Jiu Jitsu Lou podcast with me, Lou Temlett, coming to you from the UK. Thank you for supporting the show this far. I really appreciate you. Onwards and upwards to the next 100. Keep checking out the clips over on Instagram and YouTube. And today I'm having a conversation with BJJ Betty Broadhurst. So Betty, thank you for sharing your story and support for anyone kind of attempting World Masters or even any local competition. What was I kind of want to ask some more kind of personal advice as I've got you on the show. As a blue belt, how can I, apart from the rules, apart from the becoming familiar with competing, how else can I prepare myself for World Masters?
Some people, and I don't think anything's wrong with it. Some people have different beliefs about it. Keep your eye on the list of who your competitors are. They're posted. Look at your bracket. Keep an eye on it. If you see any names, look them up on Instagram or Facebook. See if they have any video posted. There's nothing wrong with studying tape of your opponent, no matter blue belt, whatever. If you know someone's a guard puller, then that's going to help you as far as your strategy. And you do need a strategy. If it's someone that is a wrestler, you're going to expect a takedown. So you can plan, So you don't know who's in your bracket until the brackets, of course, are released. But I would find out as much information, especially as we get older, and the brackets get smaller. If you know what I'm saying. With age, that's changing, but it could be only 8 people in your bracket at Worlds. So that could be 7 people you look up. Maybe you find 4, half of 3 or 4 of them. But the chances are you may draw one of those people. And it's okay. Football teams study tape, wrestlers study tape. All the professional jiu-jitsu athletes, believe me, they study tape. John Donahere is constantly studying tape to prepare and train his athletes. I mean, that is part of a strategy that you use. And don't look at where they're ranked or anything like that. You want to see what they do. Do they pull guard? Do they start off are they a wrestler? Do they do takedowns? Are they right-handed or left-handed, so that you'll know what side of the lapel they're going to grab? Little tiny details can make a big difference if you're prepared for it. Take notes. Make an index card on each person that's in your bracket. And I'm talking like a coach. I'm talking like a coach now, because there wasn't but one person for me. So it was not.
I love it.
It wasn't too hard. But I'm just saying now, when I'm coaching or preparing people that are going, that's some of the advice I give them. to take an
Amazing.
index card or write down everybody. And then if you only have 6 people, you only find 3 or 4, that's still good information to have.
Yes. Now, in the beginning part of this episode, you mentioned about going on a date in your 50s. Now, have you kind of gone back to the dating world, or has jiu-jitsu taken over?
No, I haven't gone back to the dating world. I think jiu-jitsu and pretty much took over that because it did offer. I think it filled a void. I think
Yeah.
that when you have children, and I have grandchildren. Also, I have 2 grandchildren. Uh, there's a void that you have sometimes when you are alone,
Yeah.
and that community becomes your family away from family,
Yeah.
and more ways than one. There are things that some of my jiu-jitsu teammates that I've been with for years know about me that my own family doesn't, because sometimes you can confide, just like you can talk to a doctor and you can't talk to your family or a psychiatrist or something
Yeah.
about things. So I think that absolutely fills the void. Not so much competing, but just making yourself useful to the jiu-jitsu community, because as with age, the goalposts kind of changes as far as like, I didn't go into this and, I want to be a black belt. I went into this so I could take care of myself. And
Yeah.
then I found a community, and it filled a void that I wasn't really getting from book club or wine tasting, with women, or from dating, because I didn't want to do that scene. I mean, that was before dating apps and swiping and all that stuff anyway.
Yeah.
But and then kind of as the goalpost moves and as you get older in jiu-jitsu, the competition is, you still, and competition to me was like a rush. I mean, I know some people don't like this, but I guess I'm like an adrenaline junkie. Like, I love roller coasters. I love, zip
Me
lines.
too. Me too.
I
Where
mean,
do you
I'm
where
an
do you sit?
adrenaline junkie. So I would, I loved competitions. I would get excited about competition.
Yeah.
I get excited now from when I see my friends compete, or athletes that I have helped sponsor or
Yeah.
whatever compete. So I think that I mean, watching in the stands, I get excited. So it is, but as the goalpost moves in jiu-jitsu, there's so many opportunities outside of just competing. And so once you start tapping into those, like
Yeah.
helping with kids classes, helping someone that, and I have a story I do want to tell, because it's very, very special to me, about someone that I helped. I was at Diego Bispo's in Virginia, which is Virginia Beach in Norfolk. I think British may say Norfolk, but it's named after Norfolk, Virginia. It's the largest naval base in the U.S. So we had a lot of transient visitors. Members that would come in. They may be assigned to the Norfolk naval officers or enlisted, and they would come in, and they were like young men, and they would be from, looking for a sport to do on the nights or weekends they were off duty. Or in the base, a lot of people weren't just assigned to ships, because it's the world's largest. They had all kinds they had the academy where they studied. They had people that were learning how to do radar, pilots, all naval pilots training. It was huge. So there was always large naval and military presence in our gym. And this one gentleman came in, and it was after I was a black belt. And he came in January. He had just been assigned there. And he came in, and, we had the membership thing where you get a gi and you get a new 3-month, first month free and whatever. And he said that he had wrestled, and he had gone to college and wrestled, and then he joined the Navy afterwards because he wasn't sure what to do. And he had ended up in Norfolk, Virginia, and he was told that we had a pretty large academy. Well, I was actually found out that this gentleman was a wrestler. And I remember, because he was new, I was one of the professors there that helped assist my professor. and I helped with the beginners a lot, teaching some of the beginner classes. Like we had 6 beginner classes you took before you could join the main group.
Yeah.
And I remember after my conversations with him, this guy was a collegiate wrestler. So then the more we talked, I looked him up. This guy won an NCAA championship at what we call one of the smaller schools, which is a D3, not like one of the Big Ten schools like Ohio State or Nebraska that are known for wrestling. But he was actually an NCAA champion, 88 kilograms. And he was a gold medal. He was a silver medalist his junior year and a gold medalist his senior year. And I went, we've got this person in here, and nobody even knows it. So I go back and go, you ever heard of no gi? Because he was coming to the gi classes.
Yeah.
And he said, no. I said, I think you would enjoy it, because we had a no gi class, but it was small. We didn't have a lot of people that liked no gi at that time. It wasn't in the popular phase that it is now.
Yeah.
It hadn't hit the growth. I said, well, let me tell you something. There's something called ADCC, and they have trials. And I really think if you work really hard, that the Las Vegas trials are in April. I will help you get ready for them. Now, this is a white belt. He'd only been in here 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But he could take people down and get on their back. He just had to unlearn some of that wrestling stuff.
Yeah.
So I dedicated myself to this guy. I went picked him up from the naval base, because he didn't have a ride unless he rode with some of his. He didn't have a car there, and we worked every afternoon from 3:30 p.m. until class began at 7, on nothing but learning to pass guard and take the back and choke. And then we studied ADCC rules, and then I signed him up for ADCC, and then he did a couple of wrestling seminars to raise money to help him get out there, and I helped put those on.
Yeah.
He started teaching wrestling lessons to a lot of the kids who wanted to wrestle, because once I kind of let out the bag, this guy's a really good wrestler. And so I had a couple of the guys that were really good in no-gi to come and meet me different times, and I mean, I devoted myself to coaching this guy.
Yeah.
Well, at ADCC East Coast Trials, they were in Vegas. So by April, he was at the point that I thought he could choke, so he could do a great rear naked choke. My only worry was the leg locks. You can't teach someone leg locks, a white belt. So he was a white belt, but he was a wrestler. He goes out there, and of course, I was actually a referee for ADCC. That's another story. But I was one of the first women referees for the trials, myself and 2 other women. So I had gone and taken it was like I said, the goalposts move, so you start expanding things. So I wanted to be an ADCC referee. So I went and took the ADCC course before ADCC Opens were a thing, where they travel around and have a monthly event. In the U.S., there was only the trials. So my student came. He didn't have a coach. I was his coach, so I had made arrangements that I wouldn't be reffing during his matches. Not only did he win, my professor was not there, but he was actually there. One of his affiliates from Eris was there, who helped coach me. I and him sat on the sideline. Not only did he win the first match, he won the second match and then lost the third match by decision. He was a white belt.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, he made it to round 3 of the East Coast trials. He defeated 2 black belts and then tied another black belt as a white belt. And BJJ Fanatics actually did a story about him, about being a white belt and the coaching. And I gave him videos to watch, so many Gordon videos and ADCC rules videos. So that was one of my proudest moments as far as coaching someone.
Amazing.
It was so amazing to me, because it was a lot of time, but you know, you find these new goals for yourself as an older athlete. Although, you know, competing, I'm not what I used to be at 55, and I'm going to say that. There's a big difference between 68 and 55, 13 years. I mean, my bones are a little more brittle. I don't move as fast, but you can contribute and be a part of the sport in so many other ways. recently the local gym here, we had a young lady being that she's in her mid 30s to 40s that unfortunately was in an accident and became a double amputee.
Wow.
And she had done a couple of sports that are trying to do sports, and she had actually gotten the I guess what he learned to walk on her new legs, as you would call them. She was below
Yeah.
knee,
Yeah.
and had spent 2 years almost of physical therapy just learning to walk on those, and decided, oh, I want to do jiu-jitsu. And the first thing so my coach, or the coach at the local gym here, Mark, said, Betty, do you think we can do anything with her? I said, I'd be happy to work with her.
Yeah.
So she came, and the first thing I said is, you have to take those off because we're going to be on the ground. And I said, you're going to have a great advantage because no one can leg lock you or foot
Yeah.
lock you. And she
Yes.
laughed. I mean, she was very, cordial
Yeah.
and open, but she wanted to learn to do something. But because she had spent all this time learning to walk, her upper body needed a lot of strength. So we
Yeah.
worked a lot on
Yeah.
side control and learning to crawl. I said, you've got to learn how to crawl and get your upper body muscles.
Yeah.
So, currently I've been working with her on the day. She comes maybe 2 times a week, and I try to make a point of being there and being her partner. So you find victories in other ways that
Yeah.
if you're not always compete. I'm not doing the local tournaments because, of course, that's the way I would go and coach and support. But there are ways to contribute.
Yeah.
But I did want to share that. His name is Jared James, and he actually trains at 10th Planet in San Diego now. The Navy moved him out to San Diego. He
Yeah.
left, and he's a purple belt, and he is still competing. But he was my pride and joy. You know how you have that one person that
Yeah.
I do that because he didn't know what ADCC was.
Yeah.
All he was used to was wrestling. So that's a big victory for me. And I don't know. I guess the other thing is when I was training and I began to love no gi, I would go up and visit Trish Ryan, Gordon's mom, and I would get to go to the blue basement, as they used to call it, with Nikki and Gordon and those guys. And this
Yeah.
was when I was a purple belt. And because I was really getting into no-gi. So I got to train and learn with a lot of really cool and different people back then.
Yeah.
And loved no-gi. And from then on, I preferred no-gi. I still love the gi, but I
Yeah.
prefer no-gi. But
Yeah.
it's very hard to find women's matches in
Yeah.
no-gi at my
Yeah.
age. But
Yeah.
I enjoyed the no-gi classes. But um, that's another story. So from there, I think what I want to know is that I found when I visited Trish, there were so many athletes from like Canada and other areas coming down so they could train at the Blue Basement. And I thought, gosh, these guys are really like, uh, they must love jiu-jitsu to be doing this. I mean, that
Yeah.
was a big thing. So when I went back to North Carolina, after going, I said, we never have anybody. I mean, we have to pack up and go to New York to learn from someone like Henzo or from John Danaher, because the big meccas were New York and California.
Yeah.
The West Coast had a lot of the original jiu-jitsu where the Gracies all were, and Jean-Jacques Machado. And so you either had to go to somewhere like that, or you had to go there. Florida really wasn't a big jiu-jitsu scene. So I thought, but what if we bring them here? And you'd always see black belts on tour and all. So I thought, well, North Carolina is and Virginia are sort of rural, but if we had, so I started saying, what if I so I would contact some of these athletes and say, hey, would you do a seminar? And they would say yes. So I would put it together. I would go ahead and front the money, pay for their hotel, flight, advertise it, sell tickets.
Yeah.
And from that, I would get reimbursed. And then any monies that were left, because most of the athletes have a fixed fee. And from there, it was a win-win. The athlete made money. The local communities, the rural communities and areas, where people couldn't afford to train or go to New York to
Yeah.
get to train with someone that was a world champion. So this thing kept going. So I said, in order to help fund some of this, what I'm doing, I started a company, and I named it Roll Forever just because of my age and rolling
Yeah.
forever, and sold T-shirts locally to help raise money for the next seminar. And so after a while, I think I started bringing in some really, I mean, we brought in some rig name ahead just in North Carolina and Virginia. It became, I had Jeff Glover,
Yeah.
Bernardo Feria. Of course, I had Gordon before Roll Forever. He came and did a small seminar at a small gym when he was young. And then, of course, he came back after he was an ADC champion and famous and did a much larger seminar. JT Torres, Gabriel Sousa. And then from there, I started finding out a lot of the guys that I had met in New York were Canadian.
Yeah.
And the reason they were driving and they would come stay 3 weeks and go back. And they were, a lot of times, Trish had extra bedrooms at her house, and the people that were training with her sons would stay there, to help save them from hostile or fees.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why don't you move here? They said, well, we don't have a visa. And I said, well, what does it take to do it? So I started doing research about that, and I found out, if you have a company, you can employ somebody, and then you can be their visa sponsor, which just means that you're saying you're hiring them, and you might say, hire them to wear our rash guard or hire them to wear our
Yeah.
whatever. And so it was called an athlete's visa. So I looked into it, and my professor, Diego Bispo, had an attorney that was an excellent immigration attorney for athletes. Connected me with her, and I worked out and did my first visa with Ethan Krellinston. And then the next
Wow.
one I did was with Oliver Taza. And then the next one I did was with Brianna St. Marie.
Wow.
And then the next one I did was with Luke Griffith from South Africa.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know Luke at all. I had never met him. But Gordon had told him, contact Betty. I think she sponsored, Oliver Taza, and she knows all about this. And I didn't do it to make any money off of them, because I told them I don't have any money to really pay you. I could give you some gear, but I mean, I have a company, and
Yeah.
if you'll wear my stuff while you're competing, because the visa was so important to them to get to live here and to train.
Yeah.
And so we did that. And I remember talking to Luke and his mother from South Africa on the phone, and I said, they had tried other options and they didn't really know anyone or any companies in the US. And I just said, you seem like a nice guy. I'll do it, and I didn't
Yep.
even know him, but I thought, why not? It's not going to, and if it doesn't work out, you could just end the employment. You can give them a 30-day notice, I just said,
Yep.
the main thing is you just have to, don't get in any legal trouble or anything like that. So we did that. And the next thing you know, this guy becomes this superstar.
Yep.
And Brianna becomes a superstar. But, they all move on. They become famous. They get offers from bigger companies with that can pay them, because they are considered employees. And I'm so grateful that I reached out and offered to help, because they were just looking for a way to get into the U.S. and train.
Yep.
And I didn't really have the money to pay them. So it went from doing seminar, and then while they were on my visa, I would set up seminars for them, like a booking agent. So I did a lot for them so they could train and not have to worry about that. I knew what their prices were, and I set up seminars so they could earn money.
Yeah.
And it was a good thing. And, now they all four have their, or with other companies and are bigger and have visas under other people. But I feel like it was a big contribution.
That's amazing.
To set out, and that was one of the things that was the biggest benefit from Roll Forever. And then because of the Canadian connection, I helped a lot of the athletes up there that aren't really, I would say, famous, house water fountain cooler talk or household names, but have helped them, in my own ways by providing gear, maybe paying for their seminar,
Yeah.
paying for their registration fee to something, because Canadian dollars aren't. We all know that the dollar exchange and all that, and it is so expensive there.
Yeah.
And I actually got to be, because of Ethan and them, got to be good friends with another Canadian that would come down and train. His name is Pierre Olivier Leclerc, and he helped me with Roll Forever. And he's a native of Montreal.
Yeah.
And I remember going up and visiting. He invited me, and this was when Oliver and Ethan were there. I went up to Montreal. I got to train at TriStar, and trained at Ogi. Got to spend 3 or 4 days there. Had a wonderful time,
Yeah.
and got to know a lot of the TriStar athletes. And which is another thing. One of their athletes just got a contract on the Dana White Contender Series. His name is um, oh gosh, I'm going blank because I'm on the recording. But anyway, he goes by Rat Garbage, and
Yeah.
he sells gear. And I happen to have on one of his jackets. See, this is a rat here, and I
Yeah.
try to support him by buying his gear. His name is Mandel Nallo, and he was just on last Tuesday night's Contender Series. And
Wow.
he is under Faraz Sahabi, George St. Pierre, all of the famous athletes that came out of TriStar, and he just got a contract with Dana White. And the one thing Dana White said was, "I don't like your age. He's 36. He's a little old, but he got
Yeah.
a first round knockout." But
Wow.
I kind of relate to him because he's in this. He's older, and so I'm very supportive of him. And there are
Yeah.
ways you support athletes. So I try to make sure that what I do and speak, is I try to move the sport forward and pay
Yeah.
it forward, because hopefully it'll come back to me someday, in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, the energy that you're sharing and just the kind of ethos around how you operate, supporting others and kind of bringing others along is just so important. How can any of us kind of do the same sorts of things in our own areas? What would be some of the first steps that we can help ourselves with to help others?
I think that some of the things, like one of the things I did with James, that if you know someone has a really special talent that's in your gym
Yeah.
and that doesn't have a lot of funding, if they maybe set up a seminar for them, invite other gyms, and to help that person raise money. If they
Yeah.
need registration fees, and I know everyone, there's inflation and a lot of people don't have extra money, but
Yeah.
sometimes if you see someone within your own gym that
Mm.
has so much potential but they don't have the finances, just getting together with a couple of people and paying their registration fee to
Yeah.
like compete at a local, you know something that might be local,
Yeah.
to give them competition experience,
Yeah.
or helping them get a seminar, a small one, or private lessons.
Yeah.
Offer people, tell people this guy's really good. He'd be great for private lessons. Find out if there's people that need what their needs are. I think the biggest thing, when I found out, is these people needed to get to the U.S. so they could train at the
Yeah.
best schools. So when I went into looking into it, and I think, I'm a, and you have to think about this. My education, I'm a clinical pharmacist, and then I have an MBA. I went back to school later and got an MBA, and so, I'm not like, I don't know anything about law, but
Yeah.
it's not that hard to figure out or talk to the right people or to read with internet access how to do these things, and then
Yeah.
contact the people that do them. And also sponsoring events. I think anyone that can help get an event to come to your town. There are a lot of these smaller competitions that are around. If you know anyone within that event, or you know someone that maybe has a really large gym, or has some sort of area, try to help them negotiate coming to a place that's local. because
Yeah.
I think the reasons people don't know about places. Find
Yeah.
areas that are within
Yeah.
travel distance and have places, and try to promote competition companies to come. I think there's a lot we can do to help others. The guys that are on the UK that are famous, they're in the same boat. They're out doing seminars. This is how they
Yeah.
make their money,
Yeah.
and they're trying to work
Yeah.
and they're trying to eat healthy, which we know costs more than regular groceries because they have to have supplements. All this kind of things cost, and then they have to have training time, and then
Yeah.
to have to earn money. The life of when they say that
Yeah.
jujitsu lifestyle, I don't think it's a very. I'm talking professional athletes. I don't think it's a very beautiful unless you're like really successful and you've earned a lot of money and everything's on go for you now. But it's one of those things that it's a hard thing. And think right now, Austin's kind of become the mecca, and all these people
Yes.
are moving to Austin, but the cost of living is horrible.
Yeah.
And they train, and they're having to work jobs at night. I think Victor Hugo even mentioned on a podcast once, as good as he was doing deliveries for like
Yeah.
Amazon to earn extra money and still
Yeah.
competing and working full time. And he was a world black belt world champion.
Yeah.
So, that jujitsu lifestyle is not all that good. Only a very small percentage ever make
Yeah.
any money out of it. But
Yeah.
as you said, it's small things mean a lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
a registration fee can mean an awful lot to somebody that doesn't have anything. It's the difference in their groceries or registering for a tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all great advice, Betty. We could probably talk for another hour or two at least.
I know we could.
I'm intrigued with your stories. I think it would be fantastic to invite you back on at some point, um, if you would happily come back on and chat with me.
Oh, of course I would. And I
Amazing.
did want to say, my memory just came back to me when I talked about had I ever gone my worldly travels.
Yes.
When I did go to that ADCC um, in, in Finland, and the after party, I can honestly say that that was one of the best times of my life. And I have a memory. I think I have it on my Instagram. Is Leandro Lowe, the late great Leandro Lowe, was
Yeah.
actually in that ADCC, and he was at the after party, and he's all known as a big partier and everything. And I remember standing there with friends, being an older lady, and he came up to me and said, "Let's dance." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe Leandro just asked me to dance." And I took my phone and I handed it to someone and said, "Video this because no one is going to
Yeah.
believe me if I don't
Yeah.
video." And it was Mackenzie Dern that I handed the phone to. I didn't even know who I was handing it to. I just handed it to somebody that was sitting there. And so I'm on the dance floor with Leandro Lowe dancing. And I thought, you know, I would not trade that memory for anything. I have things like that that, mean so much. And I
Yeah.
also um, have helped sponsor Grapple Fest, which is an event in Liverpool
Yes.
every year. And Roll Forever was a sponsor. Tried to help sponsor events so I could get to attend, and it would offer opportunities so a lot of up and coming athletes would have somewhere to compete. I did a lot of the Fight to Wins. I helped sponsor a lot of those.
Amazing.
But the Grapple Fest, my friend Pierre Olivier Leclerc, Oliver Taza, and a lot of we went actually when they were going to compete on Grapple Fest. I said, I want to go because I've never been. So we flew. I flew separately and met them in London, and then we took the train to Liverpool. So that was my first UK visit, and it was wonderful because I got to see Liverpool. I got to go
Yeah.
to this wonderful club. This Grapple Fest is an awesome. They have it probably 2 times a year, I think,
Yeah.
there, and there were lots of wonderful people there. Grapple culture. Maggie is a good friend of mine, and she has videoed and taken pictures of a lot of the athletes that I sponsored. And she was there that night, and we had a lot of good pictures made of my group. And there was a picture of Roll Forever athletes that actually competed on Grapple Fest, and they actually treated me like a queen. Thank you, Chris, from Grapple Fest, who is the owner and sponsor, owner and facilitator of that event. So
Amazing.
I really have been so blessed, and still at this age, at 68, I'm planning to go attend. I had a little injury a couple of weeks ago at Jiu Jitsu, and I'm recovering, but I've signed up and plan to be at Pan's No Gi, which is upcoming at the end of next month, and that's going to be in New York. And of
Wow.
course, at this point, there's no one my age, and I think the only woman in there is maybe 4 or 5 age divisions lower. So we're going to
Yeah.
wait and see. I'm still willing to compete no gi, even at a
Good.
lower rate. So we'll wait and see how that goes. But I'm planning to go just to attend, because I still find attending, and watching
Yeah.
matches, and it's almost like now going into a big community. It's like the biggest party now when you go to a World Masters. It's like you see all these people that you met or that you're friends with on Facebook or that you
Yeah.
haven't, and I don't know. And I do want to say the one person, as we wrap this up, that influenced me the most as I got into jiu-jitsu, because I started studying jiu-jitsu, the history of it, all
Oh.
that, when I was a white belt, because I kind of wanted to know where did it come from and all
Yeah.
that. And I found out the Women Dirty Dozen. There were 12 women that were the first non-Brazilian black belts, and that was back in the 1990s. Because all the black belts in there, I think 2 were Canadian, and maybe the other 10 were Americans. And one of those, Felicia O, has become a very dear friend of mine. As I had said earlier, when I was a blue and purple belt, IBJJF, the only place we could compete was at Worlds as Master 1. No, they didn't have that at Worlds. We could only compete at Masters.
Yeah.
And so Pans only offered Master 1. They didn't offer anything if you were older than Master 1. It cut off for women. If for men, it went on.
Wow.
For
Yeah.
women. So Felicia O, one of the original 12, and several other women that were trying to raise, women's jiu-jitsu, we put together a petition. And there were other people that were more in the leadership role, but I was behind it as far as soliciting and helping with that, and got a lot of things going with that, as far as the petition. And IBJF approved it, and for that PANS, they finally opened it up through Master 6. And so we finally could compete at PANS. But
Yeah.
before, only through Masters 1. And then
Wow.
after that, they did the IBJJF. The regular opens, they opened up
Yeah.
for that.
Good. Change does happen. You just need to, keep going
Yes.
with kindness and gratitude, and just keep helping everyone around us to be as good as they can possibly be. Especially if you see some talent in your gym that have exceptional jiu-jitsu skills.
Yes, exactly. And share, and share and pay it forward.
Yeah. Amazing. Betty, it's been an absolute inspiration to speak with you. I still can't quite believe it. 100 episodes, and I'm talking with Betty, BJJ Betty. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Lou. And thank you for what you are doing, contributing, and by having different guests and by having your podcast, your reach is expanded. A lot of more people know about you and have heard about you
Yeah.
worldwide. And it's your way of paying it forward. And I admire you for doing such. And I'm so excited for you and your plans to attend Masters Worlds. I'll make a point. We will make a point to be there and get a warm up roll in.
That would be amazing. That's on my list, Betty.
Absolutely, I promise it.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much. How can people follow your journey if they are not already?
My Instagram handle is at BJJBetty, and I'm more of an Instagram user. I do Facebook occasionally. I have it where my things are posted and transferred there.
Yeah.
But other than that, and then my company, Roll Forever. Right now, we've kind of taken a pause because I don't have any visa athletes at the moment. But I'm absolutely going to hopefully do some special projects to help some athletes that are up and coming. So, and it may be selling a T-shirt here and there or whatever, but everything is about helping others and moving it forward. It's all, everything I try to do goes back to the athletes. And I'm just very, very grateful. You know, I'm grateful to see new gyms opening. It's just grown so much, and I'm just so happy for all the women. I mean, just watching what happened, women making money now, and when we didn't even have women in televised competitions before. So it's very exciting seeing people like Fiona having her own gym. You know, I mean, things like that have changed so much, you know, for people. So it's a great time to be in jiu-jitsu for men and women.
Absolutely. Anyone, just go and start jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
There is so much in it.
It's the greatest social club you could ever join.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Betty.
Thank you, Lou.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for telling your friends about this show. And as soon as this episode ends, well, just listen to the next one. Thanks again for listening. Catch you on the next episode of the Jiu Jitsu Lou podcast.